Hi, you all. I hope you're having a wonderful day. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kaylee Kroyer, and I'm a registered dietitian for Kentucky Utilities and LG&E. And today, things look a little bit differently for our Working on Wellness class. As you can see, as you can tell, as you already know, we're not meeting in person for the time being, but we will be having some video calls and some opportunities to continue to have our WOW classes weekly. For this week, as you can tell, it's a pre-recorded video. I do hope in the weeks to come that we're able to do some sort of a live cast where we're still able to have the conversation and the communication that we've had in the past, because I know I really enjoy that. I enjoy getting to hear y'all's feedback and have that open conversation related to whatever the topic of the week is. But as you can see, this is my home. We're in my living room. There's my dog that I talk about all the time right there, taking a nap right behind me. But this week, speaking of my dog taking a nap, we're going to be talking about tips for better and more restful sleep. And as I've said already, this series, these topics were something that I planned several months back to be our topic of discussion during this time. And I have really enjoyed working through these topics in preparation for you all. And I've found that they've helped me during this time to still be at ease and find that calm and find that restfulness during a time that can be a little stressful and a little chaotic. So I do want to start off, like we always do, with talking about positive things that are going on and things that we're thankful for. So at home, I would love for you all to take a minute and just write down a few things that you're thankful for and some positive things that have happened over the last few weeks, some positive outcomes of maybe, the current situation, some ways that you've seen good coming out of a situation that at surface level may not seem so great. So feel free to take a moment, pause the video if you need, and just write down a few things. Remind yourself of your blessings and of the things that are going well in your life at this time. So with that being said, something great that happened, I was at a wedding last week and everything went really, really well. The wedding was in Louisville, and actually they just made the announcement that all weddings here forward for the next 8 weeks are actually canceled. So we were really thankful that the wedding was able to go on as normal. I was the maid of honor and it was crazy stressful, but everything went well. Very thankful for that. And definitely at the end of all of the wedding chaos, I was ready for some sleep. But so for today's topic, tips for better and more restful sleep, I'll send out the handout like what I usually would have for class. I'll send that out as the digital version of this when I send you all the link to this video. So feel free to follow along as you normally would with the digital version of our handout. But I think we know this to be true, that rest is very important for our health. And it's very important that we are continuing to prioritize getting enough sleep, getting high quality sleep, because that helps to keep our immune system strong and it helps us to better manage the stress of our daily work lives. If we're not well rested, whenever we go and try to handle our to-do list for the day, we feel bogged down, we feel like we don't have the energy to do that, and then it kind of pushes off the amount, kind of like a compounding effect of stress continues to build. So making sure that we're getting enough rest is so important during this time. So just a few tips, things that have helped me, things that I know have helped others, and hopefully they're able to help you as well. And for a moment of disclosure and for a moment of transparency, I've been having a lot of trouble the past few nights, the past week or so, I would say, falling asleep and getting enough sleep through the night. And I think it's just a combination of everything going on, a lot of the uncertainty, but I've definitely been having a hard time with sleep. So as we go through, I'll share with you all some of the things that have helped me, and hopefully that will help you all as well if you're also struggling with this. And if not, it could be information that you could share with a friend or family member who might be struggling. So the first and probably the most important thing will be to establish a routine. So in this time, a lot of our work days might look a little bit different. I know personally, a lot of my work is happening at home, happening either at my kitchen table or here from my couch, honestly. And that can make it really hard for having a consistent routine. We're used to waking up in the morning, going to work, being at work, and then coming home. And we know that by the time we get home, it's time to kind of start unwinding and getting ready for bed, having dinner, doing any sort of, helping the kids with homework, whatever it might be. We have our evening routines that are separate from our work day. But in this current situation of a lot of us working from home, we might feel that it's hard to separate work from home because they're happening in the same space. So establishing a routine to still, wake up kind of at the normal time, have your still morning time routine, creating a space from home or wherever you're working that is still dedicated to work, whether it's your kitchen table or if you have an office space, whatever it might be, but having a space that's dedicated to work and working only while you're there. Scheduling times for breaks throughout the day will be very beneficial. Still having a lunch break to get up and walk around, go outside, or have a meal that's separated from your desk, separated from work. I know we talk about that a lot with mindful eating, but still now having time for taking a break from work to actually have a meal and have those scheduled breaks throughout the day like you normally would in the office. And then at the end of the day, whatever your normal work day is, if it's a 9 to 5, 10 to 6, whatever it is, trying to uphold that routine, that schedule as much as possible. And at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, shutting down, logging off, putting the computer away, and being home now, stepping away from that work and having a separation between work and home, even when those things might be happening in the same place. So having some sort of a routine, upholding that routine, finding what works best for you, of course, and sticking to that as much as possible. So with that, we want to make sure that we're creating some sort of a bedtime routine. And I always think of this with kids because we always talk about having maybe a structured bedtime routine for kiddos and things that cue our children that it's time for bed, it's time to start winding down, it's time to put toys away, it's time to go to sleep. But really, bedtime routines can benefit us as adults just as much. So it might seem unrealistic, but really ideally, we want to start thinking about a bedtime routine that's about 2 hours before when we actually want to go to bed. You might think, Kaylee, I don't have 2 hours before bedtime. Working your way up, even if it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour before bedtime, start doing some intentional things to get us ready for bed. So for me, my bedtime routine starts with taking my work clothes off, taking a shower, taking a bath maybe, and getting in some comfortable clothes for the evening. I try to put distractions away at least 1 hour before bedtime. And by distractions, I mean screens. So cell phone, at least limiting that as much as I can, closing down my computer. Because some research has shown that the blue light, and y'all probably heard about this before, because I know we talked about blue light glasses not too long ago in a class. But the blue light that comes from screens helps to kind of cues our brain to wake up, similar to how sunlight or bright lights cue our brains that it's morning time, it's time to get up, it's time to wake up. The blue light that comes from our screens can also impact our what's called circadian rhythm. And she's having a puppy dream. Oh my goodness. Oh golly. The blue light from our screens can help or can prevent our brains from being able to shut down and make it hard for us to fall asleep. So setting screens away at least an hour before bedtime when possible. Now doing something such as reading a book, coloring, drawing, writing in a journal, doing something that allows our brains to kind of start to simmer down and mellow out for the evening. Drinking some herbal tea. Herbs such as lavender have been shown to help with sleep and help to calm. Chamomile is another really great herb for that. Incorporating stretching to help release tension, something like yoga or just traditional stretching can help to, release that tension, release the tightness from our muscles, especially if we're not sitting at a proper desk. I know myself, I've been having a lot of neck pain because instead of sitting in my normal desk with my desk chair, working on my computer, I've been sitting at my kitchen table, which is just not as conducive. So I've been having some neck pain. So taking time to stretch and relax can really help before bedtime, because if we lay down with all these aches and pains, it's going to be hard to fall asleep. So establishing some sort of a bedtime routine about 1 hour before we want to be asleep will really help to kind of start to calm the brain down and get us ready for bedtime. So there are a few things that we can do throughout the day to get us ready for bedtime and to make some conscious decisions to help to prevent that sleeplessness at night. So one thing that we may struggle with, maybe not, but avoiding naps in the afternoon that are longer than 30 minutes. Now, this is not typically a problem when we're working in an office because we don't always have the option to take a quick 30-minute nap in the middle of our workday. But for those that are now working from home, maybe struggling with that during the day, just having that option, being in a different environment, being able to take a quick 30-minute nap in the middle of the workday or later in the day. And while, a quick power nap might help to recharge us, taking too long of a nap too late in the day, just like a kid, it's hard for us to go back to sleep at night because we just had a nice hefty nap only a few hours before when we're trying to go to sleep. This is actually something that I learned in college, but it takes our bodies about 6 hours to metabolize caffeine on average in general. So cutting caffeine consumption 6 hours before when we want to go to bed helps to give that beverage or the caffeine, that chemical, enough time to be metabolized so it's not going to keep us up at night. There's nothing wrong with drinking caffeine. You all know that I love coffee, but limiting that caffeine intake about 6 hours before when we want to go to bed can really help to prevent that sleeplessness right at bedtime. It also just helps to calm our central nervous system and get us kind of ready for sleep, and we're not still wired from the 3 shots of espresso we had 2 hours ago. Another thing that can really help would be to incorporate some moderate physical activity into our day. It's a little tricky because exercise for some of us can help us to feel more awake. And then for others, it makes us feel very, very tired immediately after exercising. So knowing your body will be important for determining when exercise will be best for you. Personally, I don't like exercising really within 4 to 5 hours before when I want to go to sleep, because it's hard for me to fall asleep if I've just exercised. I feel kind of awake afterwards. So I like to exercise in the morning or kind of early afternoon time. But for others, it may be best to exercise right before bed. But incorporating that physical activity into our routine can help with falling asleep at night, depending on how our body responds to it. And then the last tip will be to avoid large meals 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. And this may seem like a no-brainer, but it can be uncomfortable to try to go to sleep with a full belly. And after eating a very large meal, if we try to lay down, we may experience some heartburn. So giving a little bit of time before we are ready to go to sleep. She's dreaming again. I wonder if you all can hear her. She's making all kinds of weird noises, this little dog of mine. But giving our bodies time to digest dinner before we try to go to sleep. Oh, she's just woken up. Anyways, so my last tip is going to be to manage worries and to take care of yourself. It can be very challenging during this time with the transition of work to home, with the change in possibly our roles at work. We may be having additional responsibilities that we're not used to having. Things can just be different. And I very much encourage you all to not let yourself go to sleep with a million thoughts and worries. Take some time before bed. If you find your mind is racing, jot down your thoughts into a notebook. Ask yourself these questions. What is causing my worry, stress, or anxiety? What are some things I can do to manage this situation? And what are 3 things I hope to accomplish tomorrow? Write those things down, especially that little to-do list of 3 things that you need to accomplish tomorrow, your top 3 priorities for the next day. Because then you can go to sleep not worrying, not stressing, and knowing that with a new day, you will have time to accomplish those things. And it gives your brain time to rationalize some of the stress and the anxiety that we may be feeling during this time. Identify things that are within your control and things that are outside of our control. By identifying the things that we can control, we can start to think of practical ways that we can manage those situations, things that are within our own hands, things that are within our control. That way we don't feel like we're out of control. That way we don't feel like this is something that we have no control over. Think of the practical things that are within your scope of control. Manage those things as best you can and recognize that there are some things that are outside of our control, and just doing the best that we can during all situations to stay positive and keep our focus on the things that are going well for us right now. Let me know if y'all have any questions about this topic. Again, I said this in the email, but in order to check in for this week, I would just love if you all send me an email to let me know that you were able to download the handout, you were able to skim through this video, and just let me know how you all are doing during this time. Let me know if there are any bits of this information that is helpful to you. And of course, just let me know if you have any additional questions. And that will be what we do for this week as far as a check-in. Like I said, I hope to, by next week or the week after, have some way of being able to do this live, perhaps through Zoom if that's a potential option. And we may adjust the time that we have it. So just stay in the loop with that. I'll keep you all updated on how things change. But I really would love to be able to have a live